Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Talkoffamepod podcast. I'm Kylie, and today we have Michael Stein as a guest on our podcast, who's an interpreter, actor, writer, director, producer, and stand-up comedian who has acted and worked with multiple Academy Award-winning actors, filmmakers, producers, and Fortune 500 leaders. He's also the host of the Long Shot Leaders podcast, which tells the story of underdogs who have found success. Thank you, Michael, for joining us on the podcast. It's lovely to have you.
My pleasure. And it's Michael Stein, and you could remember that just by, if my first name was Frank and my middle name was Ann, I'd be Frankenstein. But you can call me Michael Stein. That's my name, Michael Stein.
Is that your nickname, Frankenstein, or you just put those two together?
I think you said Steen, so that's Stein. But what did you say? What'd you say?
Is it like, do you like to kind of combine Frankenstein, or is it kind of like always stand like those like kind of like mixed up type of things?
I gotta tell you, your audio is like it sounds like you're talking through a tunnel a little bit.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I'll try to change my microphone real quick and see if it works.
Are you using the computer mic?
Well, do you hear me better now?
A little bit the same. But we'll make lemonade.
If
Try
you,
to
I'm
make it
gonna
work.
try and see like what's going on. How goes? Wait. I know what's the problem here. Is this? I think
It's a little better. Yeah. What'd
is
you
it,
do there?
I think I connected to a wrong thing before.
Okay.
Is it
Okay.
like better now?
It is.
All right, perfect. I'm just gonna restart the whole thing just to
You
make
got
things.
it.
So, what's your last name? Stein?
Yeah,
Or
you got it. That's Stein.
all right. So, hello guys. Welcome back to the Taco Fan podcast. I'm Kylie Montini. Today we have Michael Stein as a guest of the podcast, who's an interpreter, actor, writer, director, and producer and stand-up comedian who's acted and worked with multiple Academy Award winners, actors, filmmakers, producers, and Fortune 500 leaders. He's also the host of the Long Shot Leaders podcast, which tells the story of underdogs who have found success. Thank you, Michael, for joining us on podcast. It's so lovely to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, like, what is like your long shot story? Like, as the name of like your podcast. So, like, what is like your long shot
I
story?
give you like a 3 minute version of what it is. So basically, I'm a long shot. I feel like I come from a long line of long shots. My grandmother escaped the Russian concentration camps on her way to America. My dad was a New York homeless street kid, homeless, and he became a multimillionaire only to be homeless again due to a reckless lifestyle. my So I had to sleep in the same room with my grandmother until I was 9 years old, and because we were a poor family, lived in a rich neighborhood, but I was had a lot of problems, I wasn't supposed to be born. I had ADHD, health issues. I was an unplanned child. I just, had a had a lot of issues.
Mhm.
And I only had the only success I had was making people laugh. And then when I saw the movie Rocky, like most American kids, I said, "Hey, here's a guy like me. He's not successful. He keeps on trying, gets back up. He's not very good in school. He's not smart, but the difference between this guy and myself is he's physically fit. So I decided from that day on, I'm going to be physically fit. So I worked out every day. And by the time I was 16, I became a physical fitness trainer when I was in high school. And I said, oh, time plus effort equals success. So
Mhm.
then I told my high school tutor, I said, I want to be an entrepreneur, an actor, and a stand up comedian. She says, you might want to work with your hands, be a gardener or something, because not everybody's meant to do what they want to do. And I said, screw you. My dad never finished the eighth grade. He made millions. Granted, he's living in a van now, but he did well. So then I said, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to live in a van. So day after high school, started my own business, failed miserably, long shot leader, up and down, right? So then
Mhm.
I waited 6 months, took some classes at a city college, and I did stand up. I did really well, brought a lot of people there. And I said, hey, if I could bring all these people to a dance club, which was really big in the late 80s, I can make
Mhm.
a lot of money. So I started promoting dance clubs, became the number one nightclub promoter in my age bracket in Los Angeles. And from there, I was able to meet a lot of people. Got my first acting role playing Dirt Diggler in the Dirt Diggler story, which became the movie Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well. Made my own movies after that. And I got close to a movie deal in Hollywood by making one of my award-winning short films, but
Ooh.
it didn't get close to a deal. Like it got close, but like it didn't happen. So they wanted to do one of my screenplays, make it into a movie. Just didn't turn out a deal. I said, screw you guys. I'm going to make my own movie. But I was broke and in debt because I left my nightclub business to work in film production. So I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur again. Started my own business, tarpsplus.com, selling tarps on the internet. And within 6 months, I made over $500,000. So I was able to make it my movie, which starred Academy Award winner Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, Coolio, many other actors you've seen in movies. And it did well, but I didn't really, wasn't a blockbuster. It didn't make a lot of money, but it did decently. And I said, I'm going to take care of this business that I started. And it, since, it's made well over $100 million, and it continues to grow. But that's my long shot story of up and down. So I said, if I ever was going to do a podcast, it'd be about people that have overcome large obstacles to find success. And that's why I'm talking to you here today.
That's really awesome. Like, how did your business selling tarps like kind of build that money in such a short time? Like, was it all this business, or was it all this kind of promotions and ads and all these things?
It started off slowly, but it picked up really rapidly. I'm a workaholic. I just like to work. I'm naturally hyper. So that was the beautiful thing about the internet. It's like you could just spend more time. I could wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning if I can't sleep, and I could work on the website. So back then, it was like I got one sale, and I was like, holy crap. Gave me energy to like work even harder and get a second sale and a third sale. And then the first big order I got, I remember I was like working on a Friday. I was getting like maybe a couple orders a day, maybe 3 or 4. And the guy is like 3 months in, 2 months in. And he's like, I need $17,005 worth, $18,000 worth of tarps to be in Jersey. And I was like, holy shit. I said, well, no problem. We can get it to you there. And first I had to find the tarps. Then I had to figure out how am I going to get these tarps across the country, from on a Friday to a Monday. So I got one of my film production friends that was working as a PA, picked up a film production truck, got the tarps, drove across the country without sleeping for 3 days. Because I was going from Los Angeles to New York, and dropped them off. And I was just, I was a hustler. So, basically I was able to get that big order, and that helped me invest more in the business and create and advertise more. And I just kept on doing that and double downing on that. And that's how it just grew pretty fast.
That's amazing. Like, I don't know how you did manage to sleep for 3 days. I don't know how. I would have
30 days would be insane. 3 days.
3 days. Like, it's just like, that's crazy. I wouldn't have lasted that. Oh, I'm done. I'm going to sleep. This is honestly horrible.
Yeah. No, I was used to that from promoting nightclubs. Sometimes you just don't sleep because you just stay up all the time promoting clubs.
Like, that's the best part of it, that if you stay up late so often, you're like, oh, that's another day for me.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here in a truck. Plus I had the guy, so I would sleep on the floor of the truck. He drove for like, a 12-hour shift, and then we went back and forth. So I did get to like rest a little bit.
That's not bad though. Like, you just switch, you guys to sleep, and you're like, oh, okay, you're switching. It's just honestly the best, like, easy part on your end.
Right. It was an adventure. And then we took a train back, and we snuck into one of those sleeper cars because we only had regular seats, and we almost got thrown off the train for doing
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, like a bunch of guys, 2 guys wearing a Gold's Gym shirt, and another like conductor. It was like in a movie. He's like, we're gonna kick you off the train. Like, well, we're sorry. What can we do about this? Like, how much money you got in your pocket? I was like, oh, here you go. And they let us, go back to our seats and stay on the train.
Like, at least you didn't get kicked off though. At least you just made an excuse to get some sleep.
Right. I envision like getting actually thrown off and like getting tumbling and everything like in the movies.
Yeah. I kind of picturing that though, just getting thrown off and just falling, don't know where to go.
Yeah, what are we gonna do now? Like, I don't know, just let's follow the tracks back to the nearest town or something. I don't know. That's what, but we got to stay on the train.
And like, how did like the movie Rocky kind of inspire you to see yourself and start exercising?
I grew up with a New York homeless street dad. So, when I saw that movie, my dad was doing well at the time when I saw that movie, and went with my parents, and I was like, here's the story I've been hearing my whole life. This guy lives like he's not homeless, but he's nearly homeless and living terribly. And he kind of dressed like my dad, like a East Coast guy. And I was like, I identified really was, and this guy is not smart, he says he's dumb, and everybody says I'm kind of dumb. I'm not, I was put in a special needs school when I was, 8 years old. And so they just didn't know about ADHD like they do now, or what, or
Yeah.
whatever issue I had. And so basically it just ringed to me, and plus I've heard about, this word hustler my whole life because my mom would talk about, you want to be a hustler, you want to be a, somebody that like works really hard and, picks themselves up by the, from nothing to something. And that was a romantic thing to me. So I decided I want to be like that guy who just keeps on getting back up even though he gets knocked down.
Like this is like there's obviously that's the important thing about being kind of an actor. Watch people like see things as an actor or even like behind the scenes is that like you will see people that really are just like you as a person. Even though you do not know the person that is make believe. Well, maybe make believe a lot of characters are true characters in real life, but like to actually see that movie and see that person like you, it's just like an unreal feeling. And Rocky is such one of the best movies of all time.
It really is. It's this great script. He won it won the best Academy Award in 1976. And it's really the well structured, because he made all these other movies and, that were kind of silly. Sometimes people take away credit that, Rocky is one of the well written screenplays of all time. It's a love story, really, but it's about somebody that's trying to find their piece of the world and take ownership of that. And it's just an amazingly well crafted, structured script.
It really is. Like that movie just never gets old. It never does.
Yeah.
But like, how did you kind of deal with like with your tutor's doubts and you to become like an actor in this business?
First of all, yeah, no choice. I knew I wasn't going to work for anybody, and I knew I wasn't going to like, be satisfied being a gardener. Not that there's anything
Mhm.
wrong being a gardener, it just wasn't my thing,
Yeah.
And I saw my dad make millions, and I was like, at least I just graduated high school. He never finished the eighth grade. So I'm just not gonna, have crazy drug-filled orgies and like, crazy stuff going on, like, him living the real boogie nights, lifestyle, because that was kind of lifestyle that he led in the 70s. And I said, I'm gonna have a family. I'm gonna be loyal to my family. I'm gonna, make, something myself, but I'm gonna stay on the right track. I'm not gonna go crazy like he did. Uh,
Hmm.
you could say I went a little crazy with, producing a film, and like, you know, my film was like I was running a business out of my rented house, this little rented house in Sherman Oaks. I had a film production being run out of there. I even had like people coming and going and, like at a gym in there. So friends are coming over to work out and stuff like that. So it was a really crazy atmosphere. And then you could say that I spent a lot of money on making movies, but I in the long run, I've taken care of the business and it's continued to grow. So that's like when she told me that, I said, nah, I know I can do this because I've seen somebody with less that did just as much.
Because like if you see someone doing it as well that is in kind of like the same situation as you and might be going through the same things that you experience in your life, you have to know that like if they made it through as an actor or someone in the entertainment business, you know that you're going to get through too. Because if they did and they have so many struggles on their way with making a movie, because of course making a movie costs hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars to make. And plus paying the actors. Because of course paying the actors is it's thing alone. So it's like if you see that one guy or girl, wherever you see doing it, you're like, oh yeah, I can definitely become that person too.
That's huge because you want to be, Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. So when you see somebody else doing something that you want to do, well, first of all, just pick their brain and find out, the who, what, where, why, when, and how of how they did what they did. And ask yourself multiple times and say, how does that fit into what I can and can do? And you role model them, and then you try to
Mhm.
find the people that were in your shoes and how did they do something similar? And then you just try to, find out the algorithm of that.
And like you got your first role as the lead role of Dirk Diggler in the original short film, The Dirk Diggler Story, that later became the feature film Boogie Nights, which you appear in as well. Like, why did it like transition to the Boogie Nights, or was it two separate things?
Well, that was a great thing that you brought up, is that when you see somebody else doing something. So when, yeah, it was just a short film. It was a student film that, my friend Paul Thomas Anderson did. And I saw, it was, I saw this whole thing happen, over a process of years of like, wow, he'd spent, you know, time doing this, and then this happened and then that happened. And that's how that happened. So you saw that journey. I was like, that's how someone does that, and then you kind of role model that. So that's how I was able to make my own films eventually, because I saw how he did it,
Mm-hmm.
and, so in the beginning, it was just luck, it was like I drove somebody home. It was him, and had him in stitches laughing, and a couple days later, he says, I got an idea for a short film I want to do. Do you want to play this, the rise and fall of this porno actor? And I said, great, let's do it. And a few months later, filmed it. And I never thought I was going to do anything. I never seen anybody do anything like, something small and then blow it up like that. Other than my dad and his business, what he did. But I never thought anybody, make movies and make a small movie and make it into a huge movie. And seeing that process was amazing. So I learned a lot from that. But that's how that got started, something small. And then eventually he did his homework, and he, made things happen. And then he, he invited me back to be, have a small role in it, be it, but, still amazing process to see.
Like, what year was this? Like, did you guys film it?
Dirt Diggler Story was made in 1988. Boogie Nights was shot in 1996 and came out in 97. And so there was a long period between there. I wanted to play Dirt Diggler, but I understood that, I was like, maybe I can play Dirt Diggler and Boogie Nights again, but I was like, they need a big star. They need, and Mark Wahlberg just got done with a small movie, but he had a reputation for being Marky Mark in the Fresh Bunch. And he had, like, like a lot of
Mhm.
Calvin Klein, he was, becoming a star. So I understood that, and it turned out to be, got nominated for Academy Award. It was quite the feat to see that happen. It was a wonderful experience.
And like, do you think Mark Wahlberg would have been in that role? Honestly, like, do you think they would if Mark Wahlberg was as big as he was back in the 80s, 90s, do you think they would have casted him in the role?
Well, yeah, I think that, they would have needed, it was about a $15 million budget with a $10 million, advertising expense. So I don't know how big of a star they could have gotten. I think they were done it right. First Paul was trying to get Leonardo DiCaprio, but he was busy shooting the Titanic. And then DiCaprio was friends with Wahlberg because they were in Basketball Diaries together. So they said, well, let's maybe choose him. And it was a good fit because he was just about to hit big as an actor. I think Boogie Nights helped him. I think if it weren't for Boogie Nights, I don't think Mark Wahlberg would have been as big as he is. Definitely think that was a launching pad for a lot of actors. But he was already starting with Basketball Diaries, and he was known, for other things and before that. And would he do it now as big as he is now? Well, one, he said that it doesn't follow his religious beliefs, so I don't think he would do it. But I think it's really great that he did. I think it helped his career a lot, and I think it's definitely one of Paul Thomas Anderson's best movies, and it's a work of art. And I was privileged to see that happen, but I don't know if he would do it now. Yeah, if he was, he can go back and do it, but he should, because I think it really helped launch his career, because it's a masterpiece.
Because like if it wasn't for that certain role Mark Wahlberg did, or he wouldn't be as big as he was today because he was New Kids on the Block before he became famous, like
With
officially
Marky
famous.
Mark and the Fresh Bunch. New Kids on the Block was his brother. Yeah,
Yeah, because him and Donnie are brothers, right?
right.
But like growing up, you were diagnosed with a learning disability, dyslexia, and had a bad stutter. Like, how did these diagnoses like kind of impact your life?
Oh, it makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel like you can't do anything. It's like, what's wrong with me? And there was no diagnosis for me, actually. It was just like, well, you're not doing well in school. Maybe you have a learning disability of some sort, but we don't know what's wrong with you. And then this weird stutter I had, basically, I didn't know, how to really, it would only happen when I tried that beautiful lady that you said looked like Marilyn Monroe behind me in the pregame. As my mom, she had a personality like Don Rickles, and she talked so fast, and everybody in my family, a big family, talked so fast. So I was the youngest, and I tried to keep up. So I would stumble over my words. So my first acting teacher when I was 15 said, take a cork, put it in your mouth, and try to do your monologues and all your stuff with this cork in your mouth. And that helped me a lot because I would get tongue tied. It was a weird stutter. It wasn't like a conventional stutter. And I did that for, like a year. I would just practice with a cork in my mouth. And eventually, I hit critical mass with learning. The more you learn, the more you learn.
Mm-hmm.
The more you try to learn, the easier it is to learn. So the combination of that plus the cork and really honing it, working on it, being proactive with it, I, you know, and I don't have a stutter. And basically, a lot of this stuff, I do believe your brain is a muscle and you could work on, I'm still discursive, even talking to you now, a bunch of ideas are flying through in my head, discursively, jumping around from place to place, but you can work on it like a muscle. So that's why I overcame those things.
Mm-hmm. Like, how did you kind of manage to kind of get through that process? Because obviously, like when you deal with that kind of diagnosis, it can be very hard to kind of get through that and stuff. I know everyone processes it differently. I know with me, like I dealt with anxiety and got diagnosed with anxiety disorder a couple of years ago, and it was so hard for me. And I know with every person dealing with diagnosis, it can be hard in different ways for people.
Yeah, I wasn't diagnosed technically until I was an adult, so I didn't know what was happening. I just knew I thought it was special, and being from LA, I actually think it was an advantage because I live in Georgetown, Texas now. But in LA, if you're different, you're eccentric, you're special, So I
Yeah.
was like, hey, I'm special, I'm an eccentric person, so I would, I would do a bunch of things like really fast clip. I'm like, look how many things I could do. That's good, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is counterproductive sometimes. But I would take pride in these things, and you fall over on your face quite a bit. So I was just white knuckling it for a long time, not knowing, like I guess that's what I do, and that's who I am, and I own that, But then when I had somebody said, you need to look into this because you definitely have that, and it was affecting my business in a sense when I went to a higher level because the more bigger your business gets, certain things show its ugly head that you need to fix. So this person that was in the know said, study. So I started studying and I was able to pinpoint what the typical traits were. At the same time, your question was, how do you deal with the diagnosis? Well, as an adult, because I went through so many years of personal development, I understood that you want to take these things with a grain of salt. You want to be able to not totally believe everything so what I did was I said, okay, because first I got pissed when somebody told me I had ADHD. I was like, screw you. You don't know that. So I said, okay, I looked into it. It's like, all right, I'm checking a lot of boxes here on this ADHD thing. Okay, great. So I also heard there's some superpowers to it. I'm like, great. If I'm going to believe something, I could believe the good things as well as the bad. Okay, great. So I'm going to take all these good things that I have and say, well, because I have hyper focus, because I have this, and they say that's what I have, I could do things that other people can't, like that guy Einstein behind me. They said he had ADHD. I'm like, great. That enables me to do X, Y, and Z. Now the inabilities, the negative parts of it, I said, I'm just going to pinpoint those things and work on them like a muscle, like I did when I saw the day I saw Rocky to the time now it's just a muscle. You can grow it, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
work on it that way. So those are the way to attack it. I believe the power, the enabling things, and I don't believe the disabling things. I just work on the disabling things, but I believe more on the enabling things, and that's how I handle those things.
Mm-hmm. Because like if you were diagnosed or some with a diagnosis like ADHD, it can be very hard to actually kind of tackle that ADHD diagnosis. And like I know with people with ADHD, like it can be very difficult, but then like when people are actually diagnosed with it, it can be very surreal thinking like, how do I have ADHD if I have all these other things I'm dealing with at the exact same time?
Right. Yeah. And my daughter, quote, and I tried to say it with a grain of salt, like was diagnosed with ADHD, my youngest. And I was like, okay, she says, yeah, dad, because of my brain, I'm like, look, don't give yourself an excuse. Say, look, there's a probability you might, choose to do one thing as opposed to another because you have a variation of how your brain operates, but that doesn't mean anything. First of all, it's a muscle. You could work on it. I don't care what anybody else says. And secondly, there's superpowers to it. So, believe, the triad of emotions is a personal development thing, which is your physiology, your body, the way it moves, your focus, and your words. And you need all three to really have change your state. So if I wanted you to be totally feel like you're a lottery winner, I can get that. I can get you to do that by you focusing on certain words internally and externally, saying certain things out loud and saying things internally. Also, I could change your physiology. I want your face to do X, Y, and Z. I want your body to do X, Y, and Z right now, and I want you to focus on something. So if you have a bad diagnosis and you're like every time you think about that, you slump your shoulders, you're crestfallen, you're low, shallow breathing. Okay. That's physiology of, that's not enabling. And then if you also concentrate on, negative words, debilitating words, as opposed to enabling words, that's going to create an emotion. And likewise with focus. So you got to mind that. And I tell her to mind that with the way that she handles her diagnosis and to really, change that. And then also this is important each time because people are pattern driven people. So it's important to set a pattern, say, look, I've been doing this for a year now. I'm believing X, Y, and Z whenever somebody says something or something comes up. And then it just becomes Pavlov conditioning to where you're conditioned to where you're, operating from a higher place, no matter what anybody says that you have, or, and you don't want to blame, you don't want to give yourself an excuse to not operate optimally because you say you have some condition.
And like you are the host of the Long Shot Leaders that tells the stories and secrets of leaders, innovators, interpreters, and various high achievers. You explore their struggles, shortcomings, challenges, and setbacks that ultimately lead to growth and betterment. Like, what are some like kind of secrets to kind of grow your betterment or grow as a person?
Yeah. So this is doing on Long Shot Leaders has been like a godsend. It's so awesome because I try to do every single interview and I just try to interview somebody and say, what's your algorithm? You started from a low point, you went to a high point. What's the algorithm that got you to have the success? And there are key points that keep on coming up. And one is the mindset. It's Pavlov conditioning like we talked about. But, somebody that, sets, when they hit leverage, they hit a point of, of so much, a threshold point to where they can't stand it anymore and they need to take action. And they've taken action and it's succeeded and they believe in that action. So then once you have one accomplishment, you believe in a second one. And once you do a second accomplishment, you believe you can have a third, and it stacks on each other. So I've seen a lot of these people that have created patterns and that have created a positive. So creating, positivity, and there's a lot of failure that goes along with that. So they're used to failing. Every great successful person has really failed. They really have. So but then they learned how to fail. They learned that when they fail, they ask themselves the right question, they're able to bounce back. So, and they also say like, well, what can I learn from this? What was funny about this? What is good about this situation? A lot of times when people fail, they're like, oh my God, this is so bad, I don't ever want to do this again. I'm just going to do something else. I'm not going to do anything like this again because it didn't work. That's like the worst thing. And all these successful people don't ask questions like that. They ask themselves empowering questions that are going to lead them in the right direction. So that was a big thing. My thing is that I try to, ask myself the who, what, where, why, when, and how, and ask myself like the Toyota 5 whys. Toyota is a company that, asks themselves, why is this? Why is that? Why is that? It's called the Toyota 5 whys. That's why they're so successful. I try to ask that with the who, what, where, why, when, and how, and ask my 5 times. And that gives me scope of a situation. So when you come times to make decision making, a lot of these high achievers make decisions from a very calculated point. So, and they take care of their body, they take care of their mind, they actually make good decisions. And those are really some of the main bullet points. As trite as that sounds, he's like, well, I kind of knew that. The last thing I'll say is this: they know that. And a lot of people have heard this information before. There's a difference between intellectual knowledge and physical knowledge. These people that are successful have taken the intellectual knowledge and then they have applied it into real life. And they've gone through the situation. Because you could tell everybody listening right now, conceptualize this idea of success. And I just gave you the bullet points. But then they need to take action either fail or succeed with that action and go through with it so they know how to do it again and again, because that's the difference between these successful people. They take the intellectual knowledge and make it physical knowledge.
That is seriously well said because like those two things are basically different in many ways. People probably think like, oh, there's the same thing and stuff, but like they're totally different because if you have like personal knowledge, it's about what you think and what you do. And like in your knowledge about this career field. And like that's the total opposite of like what you're trying to do on the other side of it.
Yeah. And yeah, I could tell you what a strawberry tastes like. And I could tell you it's the seeds and the pulp is kind of soft and there's a sweetness to it. But until you taste the strawberry and actually start chewing on it, you're going to have an ineffable, which means undescribable in words, understanding of that circumstance. And that's the same thing with these people that are successful. They take the intellectual knowledge, they understand it. Somebody has taught it to them. They've got the data, but now they need to apply it and go through a process of what that data is for. And there's a big difference to get used to how to succeed and follow through with the success to make that happen.
And like the last thing I have for you is what is some advice for like podcast hosts or people that are dealing kind of with a disability like ADHD?
Well, advice for podcast hosts is get selflessly, if you have a guest on your show, selflessly get involved with your guest. It's all about them. Like today, I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot of talking. When I do
Mhm.
my podcast, I am constantly moment to moment impulsivity of trying to go inside and listen to every single word, get emotionally involved with the guest and just say, what are they saying? What are they feeling? What's going on with them right now? How do I feel about that? How do I, what are they, what's happening here? And I'm constantly moment to moment with them at every step of the way. I get selflessly involved in what's happening, what they're talking about. That's what I would say every podcast host needs to do. It's as simple as that, because great things will happen if you get selflessly involved in them. Great things will
Yeah.
happen to you. The great things will happen to you if you get selflessly with your personality is too, but that's a different story.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a whole different story.
yeah. So that's what, if you don't have a guest, I would get selflessly involved in what your listeners want and then think about what your listeners are thinking about as you're saying it. Once again, it's all about you're doing something for a reason, for a service. So I'm constantly thinking about people that are driving in their car or holding onto their cell phone or walking or do whatever, listening to me because I'm thinking about them. What do they need and want? So that's what I would say for podcasters. And the second part, there was a second part to your question, but I forgot what it was because I got the
Um,
ADHD.
yeah, like what is like some advice like advice to like kind of people that are dealing with ADHD or the same they're doing the same diagnosis as kind of you or kind of dealing with the same things.
I would take it all your diagnosis with a grain of salt in the sense that you can be serious about it, but I would not give it ownership of finite situations. So if you're diagnosed with ADHD, someone told you have that, say, okay, first of all, realize you got superpowers, right? You want to believe some shit, you might as well believe that. So you say you got
Yeah.
hyper focus. That means that when you're dealing with one thing that you really want to deal with, you're going to be able to handle that better than anybody else, better than people that don't have this so-called condition, right? Then first of all, you want to get the nuts and bolts on ADHD. You want to be able to simplify yourself. Take your ringer off your phone, clean up your files, make sure everything's neat and tidy. Make sure, don't get obsessively compulsive in making things neat, also deviating from your work, because that'll happen too. But make
Hmm.
sure that, you keep everything simple and make sure that your process throughout the day are simple. Try to set a very simple process for things in your life so it doesn't take up your time to deviate because you'll get lost. Realize that, that this is a muscle, that tomorrow will be better than today, that you'll get better at it as long as you're aware of those things. And realize that, you can be just as much as in tune, whatever weakness they say ADHD has, you can be just as much in tune as somebody that eventually, I believe, this problem goes away. It depends on how much time you spend onto it. These so-called issues are not issues anymore, because depending on how much work you put into it and understanding it and applying it through physical changes throughout the day when when it's 2:44 in the afternoon and you decide that you're going to like deviate from something and you stop yourself, you physically jump out of your body and change the pattern. So if you do what is called a pattern interrupt, you can move forward and you'll get out of that state and you'll get better at getting rid of those issues that they have, like so-called ADHD.
Because like with people with ADHD, they always like to be obsessively kind of cleaning up things. I know with some people they like to kind of clean up things like files or clean their house or keep their kind of space clean. That's how I am. I love to keep my space clean. If I
Yes.
don't, it kills me. But
Yeah.
like with those type of things, like if you don't do it, it'll kill you for the rest of your day. Because like if you don't do those things that are bothering you, then like it will continue to kill you. That's a part of ADHD. So like if you don't do what your ADHD isn't killing you, it's gonna only keep getting worse from before. So if you just keep working on that project and work on the ADHD, whether that's like meditation or doing that project that your ADHD is killing you for, going on a walk or whatever like you like to do, because if you do those type of things that your ADHD is kind of bothering you, I know with some ADHD people they like to take medication. Medication's a good way to help you as well, but like to do those type of things, it will help your ADHD get better or worse. I don't know how like some medication stuff are because every ADHD with ADHD with every person is different. So I can't speak for everyone, but everyone has a different experience and everyone kind of has their own personal way of kind of dealing with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was that person too. I would get, like selflessly involved in like just cleaning up the room and it's like, wait, I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, Z. Now I'm off on this tangent. Really, sometimes you just need to sit yourself down and force yourself to do it and say, look, and do it in small chunks. You say, okay, fine. I recognize that this is, I'm opt to do this sometimes, that I'm going to force myself just to do 20 minutes. Okay. I'm just going to do this project for 20 minutes in little chunks or maybe 10 minutes. And then you put on a timer or whatever and just do it. Sometimes you'll end up doing it longer, but you just, and also if you set patterns for yourself, once again, because this really works well with me, and I know it probably works for a lot of other ADHD people, I'll say, look, at this part of the day, I usually work out. At that part of the day, I need to do some writing. So I'm going to make myself do that right after I do that every day. This is my routine. Routines are really good for people that so-called ADHD. So set your routine and make sure if you find that an hour is too much time for you to do the writing, then only do 10 minutes. So the routine becomes real and you set it in motion. So once you build a nice simple routine for yourself, you're not out cleaning because, hey, you just worked out. Then you walked over to that area and now you're sitting down there and you're creating that routine that's sustainable and you're making it happen. You just make it a habit. So you got to find your routine and make it a habit, which prevents you from going off and cleaning the house because you're like, it was so simple for you just to sit 10 minutes and maybe take that little chunk.
Right. And like, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It means so much. You're such an amazing person. And it was such a pleasure to speak with you. And thank you so much for everyone listening. Thank you again for coming on.
That's very nice. Thank you very much.
Of course. Have a good rest of your day.